The Psychedelic Report.
Psychedelic drugs
have played their part in America's long, strange trip toward an understanding of mind-altering drugs.
The Psychedelic News.
Leading physicians, scientists, and experts share their wisdom about psychedelic medicines and healing.
50 years ago, psychedelic drugs were at the center of America's counterculture.
The brightest minds in psychedelic medicine. The Psychedelic Report.
We use the ketamine-assisted psychotherapy model that happens to have psychedelic effects that were not predicted when the drug was first developed.
From researchers to investors.
I think the biggest mistake we've made as a culture is the war on drugs.
To physicians to shamans and nonprofit pioneers.
Psychedelic drugs.
Recent research suggests some of them could have legitimate uses.
The Psychedelic News
brings you diverse perspectives from the front lines of this exciting movement. The Psychedelic Report.
The Psychedelic Report was brought to you by Apollo Neuroscience and produced by Future Medicine Media. Welcome to the Psychedelic Report, your single source of truth for the psychedelic news. I'm your host, Dr. Dave Rabin. I'm a neuroscientist and psychiatrist trained in ketamine-assisted psychotherapy as well as MDMA-assisted therapy. Welcome, everyone, back to another episode of the Psychedelic Report, your single source of truth for the psychedelic news. I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Dr. Jeannie Fontana, who is running the Treat California campaign. The last time that we heard from Jeannie about Treat California, which arguably is one of the most exciting and critically important movements in the entire psychedelic medicine space, was in episode 9 in April of 2023. And we're excited to bring Dr. Fontana back to share updates from the movement with us because lots has happened and there's a lot more opportunity for all of us to participate in this very, very important and significant opportunity to expand our access to care and quality of mental health care to the entire United States and the world at large. So, Dr. Fontana, thank you so much for joining me here again today.
Thank you, Dave. And I want to just compliment you on your podcast. I think you do such a great job of explaining things and bringing important information to the public. And I just think you have a lovely way about you. And I hope that your listeners can share your podcast with others because I think you are deserving and worthy of having a broad reach. You have a wonderful skill set of being able to articulate what can be complicated concepts and subject matter into very bite-sizable and palatable format. So thank you.
Oh, I thank you. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate all the work that you're doing in the space because this is a tireless and often thankless work that we do. And people don't often get to hear from the folks who are literally running the operation behind the scenes. And so maybe we could kick off by could you give everybody just a very brief recap of what is Treat California and why is this so important for us to pay attention to right now?
Yeah. So before I tell you that, I would like to also acknowledge that the effort that goes into bringing this to the public is Herculean. And like you, I mean, I believe any startup or any time you're trying to bring about change, it requires just determination and dedication that is beyond what we call normal. Since we last spoke, I believe I've been putting in 15, 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I do it with great passion and love. I am so honored and excited to be involved in this project because I really believe that it will transform the lives of millions and millions and millions of people. And the more information that keeps on coming out to the public, including MAPS recent trial, the psilocybin trial and major depression, it's so exciting. And to think that these medicines can actually address an unmet need for treatment-resistant, whatever it is really significant. And it's something that pushes me. Like people say, what are you doing? You need to rest. I'm like, I know I rest, but I just, there's this drive in me to make sure that Treat is successful and leave it up to the voters to vote yes. And then the real more work begins by executing on our plan. So Treat California is a citizen-driven ballot initiative. Again, that's where the citizens, in this case of California, will vote yes on our proposition, a number that we should get once we qualify for the ballot. So since we last spoke, Dave, I just go, wow, it's been 5 months. We've done so much, including submitting the legislation to the General Attorney's Office. We had a 1 month public viewing opinion feedback, and I have to share with your audience that the first feedback I received, it was a voice message, and I was at the end of the night, and I was kind of tired, and I try to be selective with what I view at the end of the night in case it riles me up and I don't sleep so much. So for some reason, I thought, maybe I'm going to take a listen to this, and I'll be dang. It was a guy who says that he was a conservative white Christian male who read this legislation and said it was the most important and impressive legislation he's ever read. And that as a Christian white male, he said the media often depicts us as extreme far right. And he said, I just want you to know that that's not always the case. And I'm here to support you in any way I can. So that was something I ended up playing over and over again, because it was affirmation that this is reaching across party lines, that is actually touching the people. And that's what is moving me a lot. So the process that we are undergoing with the Attorney General's office, just for the listeners to be aware of, is I believe tomorrow we receive from the Attorney General's our final title and summary, which means we begin the signature collecting process, of which we have 180 days to collect 1.4 million signatures from registered voters in California. So please have your listeners go to treatcalifornia.org, sign up so that you can receive information about the campaign and where to go to sign the petition. You need to be a registered voter to sign the petition, and please go on voterstatus.ca.gov. Maybe you can put that in the show notes. To check your voter registration information. It's really important. In case you've moved, that's okay. You just have to sign where you're currently registered. That's really important. And don't sign twice. So it's really, we are just about to launch this massive volunteer signature gathering campaign. And I'm so proud to share with you that we have arguably the best campaign manager in the country running our campaign. He has over 30 years experience running campaigns, and including some presidential campaigns. He was being solicited to run some international presidential campaigns when we approached him, as well as some other political jobs in our country. And after learning about TREAT, he turned it down and moved from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles, here where we're located, to run our campaign. And it's been nothing short of extraordinary. His access into the unions has been a real game changer for us. Let me explain what that means. I new to political history somewhat, believing that there are two parties in our political system, the Democrat and the Republican parties, but I am fast learning that there are three, and it is the unions. And the unions represent the people. They are the backbone of our society. They keep our country working. They fly our planes. They pick up our trash. They deliver our mail. They are healthcare workers. They are bakers. They are, you name it. There are unions that represent it. And because of, teachers union, fire department, so on. And because of his connections, we have been in front of at least 30 unions thus far, the leaders. And when they hear us speak about what TREAT is attempting to do, which is to deliver a new tool for the mental health care providers to address first mental health issues, including addiction and pain, they are all in, because every person in this country is personally touched by some mental health issue. Their family members are, or certainly people, their friends in their community are. And when we think about the costs to our society, and particularly the union members talk about healthcare insurance, about the costs, the rising costs of healthcare insurance for mental health is just been exorbitant. We are in a state of a mental health care crisis in our country, and it's time to look at new therapies. So we received the endorsement from the Long Beach Firefighters Union before I even submitted the legislation to the Attorney General's office. This is a first in union history that a union member would endorse us before we even qualify for the ballot. We also received endorsements from the American Postal Workers Union for the regions of Los Angeles area, including Greater Los Angeles County, as well as the San Diego counties. This, again, is a union first. We are in line for 30 other major unions to endorse us. There's not a one union members that heard us and said, we don't want to support you. Rather, it's we need to go through our process to endorse you. So they're a politically active organization, and we're excited about their support. They are not only, which is what we want to ask your listeners to do, is get on our website, donate at least $10. This is a grassroots effort. Campaigns are super expensive. And we believe that if we can reach the voters of California to donate just $10, and in fact, everybody in the country, as long as you're a U.S. citizen and you don't have a felony, can donate to our campaign. So please do that. $10 is 2 Starbucks coffee. Also need you to sign up on our website. You will be able to download the petition, which will be an 8-page document. And mail it back to us, and or we will have locations by which you can go and sign this petition. Please, 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 we have a 10 by 10 by 10 campaign. We want you to donate at least $10. Need you to sign the petition and get at least 10 other people to sign the petition, and then tag 10 other people to do the same. We have a social media handles on our website. It's Treat California. On Instagram, we're starting to post the daily activities that are happening in this movement, and it's getting quite exciting.
You're listening to the Psychedelic Report.
In addition to the union members, we have a big coalition with the veteran community that's supporting this effort. There's 1.8 million veterans in California. We have 2 generals on our team now. 1 3-star general, General Marty Steele. He was the former commanding officer of the U.S. Marines. He's been leading a coalition, the Veterans Coalition in Washington, D.C., to educate the federal government on the importance of increasing funding through the veterans community to treat mainly PTSD and addiction amongst the veteran community. He has been a stalwart advocate for these medicines, along with Brett Waters, and their organization is Reason to Hope. We support them, and they support us. The other general is General Lori Sutton, MD. She's the highest-ranking psychiatrist in the Army, and she, too, has joined efforts to help, speak on behalf of Treat California Act to the country, but also to help rally the support of the Californians to sign this initiative. We have a robust campaign we call our Impact Hub with the college kids. Anybody who's over the age of 18 can sign this petition. You need to be a registered voter. If you haven't registered to vote yet, please go. You can do it easily online at voters.ca.gov, register to vote right on the spot. There are 3 million college and graduate students in the state of California. We have a wonderful hub leader who is rallying the college and graduate students to sign. We believe the future of this country is in this age group, this category, and they are moved by this. And then lastly, there are about 3 million LGBTQ plus voters of California that register as such. And we have a robust campaign to reach that group of people who are particularly hard hit in today's political environment. So the suicide rate and depression rate and addiction rate amongst that community is particularly hard hit. Okay, so starting probably this next week, we will begin signature gathering. We have 6 months to qualify for the ballot. We anticipate that we will qualify by year end because of Ramon Becerra, my campaign manager, and Dr. Sarah Abedy, the deputy campaign managers, and their efforts at organizing this campaign is just phenomenal. Once we qualify for the ballot in 2024, we believe we'll spend most of the year educating the public about mental health issues. It's time to shine some light on how best to handle mental health issues and, importantly, psychedelic assisted therapies. I'd like to address to your audience the decrim bill that has received a lot of attention here in California. Senator Scott Wiener and SB 58 got it out of the Assembly and the Senate, and now it sits on Gavin Newsom's desk. We're not sure which way he will go on this. Although we support decrim, we do not believe anybody should be put in jail for the use of psychedelics and or marijuana. And that law needs to be changed. The Treat California is not a decrim or legalization movement. I believe personally that these medicines need to be treated with great respect. These are powerful medicines, and that the people undergoing psychedelic assisted therapy need to be educated and supervised while they're under the influence of these medicines. Lots of information is indicating that it's the integration of what is seen in this medicine space that seems to benefit the patient overall. I have learned from a group of mothers whose children, there are 6 of them that have come together to educate the California legislature, is that their kids, college-age kids, under the influence of mostly psilocybin, died for various reasons, but most importantly because they weren't supervised. And what I find so really inspirational about these mothers is they're not against psychedelic assisted therapies at all. They are against the legalization of it. They believe that their children, if they were supervised, that they would still be here. And we support that. So I think that kind of sums up, although I can keep on talking. So put it back to you, Dave.
Thank you so much for that recap and sharing with us how far you've come since we last spoke in April. This is, again, an incredibly exciting opportunity for all of us, not just those located in California, although for all intents and purposes of this conversation, this is really a call to action to all registered California voters who, of course, are over the age of 18 to participate, because it really puts the decision of where our tax dollars are allocated and how much we care about as a community about mental health into our hands. And this is a really interesting opportunity in particular because, up until this point, and we talk about this a little bit in episode 9, but there's only been, for the most part, philanthropic investment into psychedelic research to date. Most of the money that has come into the psychedelic space, which is in the hundreds of millions of dollars to date, has almost all been philanthropic donations. And those can only take us so far through the process of research and commercialization. And to give you an understanding of that, I don't think there's ever been a single medical intervention that has made it all the way through FDA trials on philanthropy alone. So what Treat California is really setting us up for is it says, hey, do you want to, as a California resident, be able to have influence on where your tax dollars are going to address some of this complex burden of mental health in our country and state, which you mentioned, none of us, I don't know a single person who doesn't know somebody close to them who's struggling with mental illness or addiction or pain. We don't have good treatments for that. As a psychiatrist, I can tell you firsthand, most of these folks wind up symptomatic for years and years. And these are the most expensive patients to treat, are the untreated mental illness patients. And so this campaign, which is really just requiring our participation and education, sharing with the community about how important it is, will actually allocate something like $5 billion over the course of a few years to psychedelic research in the state of California, which, similar to what you did with the California Stem Cell, helped out with this California Stem Cell campaign, will translate into benefit for the entire United States and anybody who is struggling with these kinds of treatment-resistant mental health conditions or mental health challenges. So it's really, really exciting because it really puts the power back into the citizens, right? And into our hands to actually participate and have control over, what do we care about? And I think that's really a lot of the beauty of the citizen-driven ballot initiative that you put together and that you've demonstrated works in the past. And so thank you for doing that. You're listening to the Psychedelic Report.
Let me clarify too, this $5 billion, which will be allocated over 10 years, approximately 10 years, does not result in a direct increase to taxpayers. The money will come from the sale of general obligation bonds, whose interest is amortized over 3 decades. So the interest will be about $1.6 billion. So the total cost of this initiative is $6.6 billion over 30 years. And let me address the reason why that amount, which may sound big, is actually a drop in the bucket. In 2017, which is the latest information we have, the CDC reported that the U.S. spent on opioid crisis alone was $1 trillion.
That is
and
correct.
The state of California spent $61 billion. Now, we come in and we guesstimate that we can treat at least 10% of those patients who otherwise fail treatments. If we can treat 10% of patients who otherwise fail treatments, we're saving the state alone 1 year, $6 billion for just that disorder alone. So imagine the economic savings that we are creating by bringing this therapy to the public in a safe, responsible, and ethical way. In addition, TREAT is planning to create new jobs. We are scheduled to certify and license hundreds of thousands of mental health care providers in psychedelic-assisted therapies. So our first milestone will be training 200,000 therapists. We know that that's the bottleneck right now in mental health care provisions, and so we believe it's important to train mental health care providers. Secondly, I want to clarify that these medicines will not follow the path of the cannabis industry, which most people are aware of. This is not a state-by-state legalization or decrim effort or even regulated access effort like Oregon or Colorado. Rather, by working with the FDA, we will get FDA approval, which will make it available to every citizen in the United States. So you don't have to be lucky enough to live in a state that allows this medicine or not. We are working on a new access to care model. We believe that every citizen in First California should have access to these therapies regardless of ability to pay. We're well aware that underserved communities are the hardest hit with mental health issues and addiction issues, and that it's time that we change the way we treat our citizens. So that's a very important distinction for us. And sometimes it's difficult for people to really comprehend the scale of what this TREAT Institute, which will be formed from the yes vote on November 5th, 24, will create. So it's treatment. We're bringing therapies to the public. We're training mental health care providers, and we're making it accessible to all. And that means it will be accessible to everybody in the United States. So why is California footing this bill? One, we have been the leaders in the country of some progressive policies. The Stem Cell Institute was a good example of that. Most people aren't aware about stem cells, but back in 2004, we had the first of its kind in the country. We created the largest funding agency in the world for stem cells, and I was honored to serve on that board, which is now a $8.5 billion funding agency. We created 55,000 new jobs, brought FDA-approved therapeutics to patients, and an additional $10 billion of revenue, 50 companies to the state of California. So we, in essence, built the ecosystem of what is now the regenerative medicine space, which is around the world. We will do the same with the psychedelic medicine space. We are building the infrastructure, the ecosystem. We are being proactive with running large-scale clinical trials, tracking data, safety, and efficacy, but doing it quickly, but not sloppy. So I want people to know that this agency, we plan to deliver FDA-approved therapeutics by the end of year one. It's 2025. We have a good reason to believe that that's a realistic goal. And then within our clinical trial infrastructure, we will be able to quickly look at the different indications that these medicines show promise towards, including anxiety, depression, other addictions, including nicotine, pornography, these things that are disrupting our society. Yeah, and they go on. And it goes on and on and on. So I don't want to overwhelm people, but just to appreciate that this is a new model. This is new leadership that we are leading with being expeditious and cost effective. And I'm allergic to waste and bureaucracy. There's not a chance you would ever catch me doing this. Who in their right mind would, run a state agency? As not my personality. And the only reason why I'm doing this is because I've been involved with an agency that was successful in the past, the stem cell agency. I learned a lot of what worked about it and what needed to be improved. And I'm planning to bring that to the Treat Institute. So I want people to give a chance that actually a government agency can deliver on its promise.
Yeah, well said. And personally, I benefited from, as a burgeoning neuroscience stem cell researcher in New York, I benefited from the work unknowingly at the time that you did with the Stem Cell Institute. And a lot of the funding for my research came from that work that you did starting back in 2004. And so this really is possible. It's very doable. I think that the odds are in your favor and your team's favor to get this over the line. That being said, we all still have to participate. And if you're wondering if this applies to you, well, let's just go through some of the things that Dr. Fontana was just mentioning. If you have or know somebody close to you with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, psychedelic medicines are on the forefront like MDMA and have just completed clinical trials with the FDA demonstrating that MDMA-assisted therapy is the best, most successful treatment we've ever had for post-traumatic stress disorder. If you know somebody with depression, the evidence is strongly in favor of psilocybin-assisted therapy as one of the leading treatments and most effective treatments in long-term remission from depression. If you are struggling with addiction and substance use disorders, you mentioned the opioid use disorder earlier, Ibogaine and Iboga, which is a psychedelic medicine that comes traditionally from Africa. And we actually just did a recent episode last month exploring the impact of these ancient plant tools like Iboga on treating opioid use disorder. That in and of itself is $1 trillion a year to address. And we don't have any other tools right now other than perhaps cannabinoids, but those are not regulated. And so this is an opportunity for us to address some of these extremely complex public health problems that have never had solutions. And to be able to have this kind of resource allocation, this kind of funding come from a state to actually support this in California and then nationwide is just so exciting. And it stands to revolutionize the entire way that we see this field over the next few years and the entire paradigm with which we treat mental illness. And I couldn't be more excited to see all of the people, the unions, the generals, and all of these other people that are rallying behind this cause, because it's just not that I had any doubts, but it's even more affirmation that you're on the right track and the work that you're doing is literally groundbreaking for our country and for the field of mental health. So thank you so much for doing that. And perhaps we could wrap by just having you repeat the call to action again for everybody to participate, because if you are over 18 and you're registered as a voter in the state of California, there's two things that we want you to do, right? We want you to do the 10-10-10, where you're donating $10 at treatcalifornia.org and you're sharing that with 10 other people. and
sign the petition and get 10 other people to sign. Each petition has a signature page, of which there's 8 others, so maybe it's 8. Get 8 other people to sign, same county. Get them to sign and then mail it back to us. It will be on our website. And or we will reach out to you where to go to sign the petition. While I want to just compliment my extraordinary team, we have a massive team now this is a grassroots effort. We need you. Every person here needs to participate and get involved, make your voices heard. And lastly, I just want to end on Lucy Walker, who produced How to Change Your Mind, has just finished a film on Ibogaine. Work with Nolan Williams at Stanford and Mission Within, Dr. Martin Polenko. It's an extraordinary film. Go out and see it. But it also highlights the history of these medicines and the history of the war against drugs. So I want to bring it to everybody's attention that although TREAT is bringing psychedelic-assisted therapies to the public in a safe, responsible way, there have been prior attempts to do so, and the political powers to be squashed it. So we have to be thoughtful with the way we bring these medicines safely to the public. We need to bring all citizens of America actually on this path with us. And so please be patient with people who aren't familiar with psychedelics and who have a negative bias. I did myself, being subject to the sort of propaganda, if you will, and that we need to join arm in arm and reach a hand towards each other because we need to come together to help one another. It's time we stop the rhetoric, come together and help one another. And we say, in helping others, you are helping yourself. And one of our mantras is treat yourself with love. Because as you're treating yourself with love, you treat others with love. And we are so desperately in need of helping one another now and doing it effectively. So please go to treatcalifornia.org, sign up, please donate at least $10 and make sure your voter registration is current and sign the petition. Don't sign it twice and get others to do it. And now is the time. Now is the time. So thank you.
Now is the time indeed. And, I think that we're really on the verge of something great here. Prior to, I think I want to leave everybody with one last point, which is at one time we thought, prior to the invention of antibiotics, we thought that infections were a life sentence or were going to lead to an amputation and were incurable. And then all of a sudden we discover antibiotics, and within 7 to 10 days, most infections that used to be a life sentence are now actually curable. And prior to that discovery and the massive dissemination of that work, the scientific and medical community did not believe that that was even possible. All of a sudden, it happens, and we're in a completely different paradigm of treatment, and lifespan extended dramatically, and quality of life for all of us expanded dramatically. This is what we're on the verge of with mental health. And so if you know anybody with a mental health, pain, or substance use issue, pay attention to Treat California. Go to treatcalifornia.org and please participate. We need all of your help. Thank you so much for joining us, Jeannie. It's such a pleasure to have you as always.
It's an honor, Dave. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Psychedelic Report. Visit us at thepsychedelicreport.com. This show is recorded weekly on Clubhouse with a live audience. The Psychedelic Report was brought to you by Apollo Neuroscience and produced by Future Medicine Media. While I am a doctor, I'm not your doctor. So please don't take anything you hear on the Psychedelic Report as personal medical advice, because we don't know you. If you have questions about anything you hear on this show, please consult with your doctor.